All right, so I want to introduce Aliza Freedman tonight in our Inner Circle community. She is our speaker all the way from, she's in Connecticut. She's about 10 minutes away from me. And her business name is Your Site Sizzles. And I know Aliza will share about why she loves bacon. I don't know if you're going to share about that, Aliza, but I want you to introduce yourself. But Aliza is a branding and marketing expert. She rebranded my business a couple of years ago. She redid my website. And Steph Padro, who is one of our members, she also did her website and rebranded her business after working with me in creating her business. So I'm going to leave it to Aliza to share more about her background and why, tonight's all about brand identity. What does that mean, the word brand? And so, Aliza, why don't you introduce yourself first before I ask you some questions?
I would be happy to. Thanks for having me, Tina. And I'm excited to have met everybody who I didn't yet know. And Suze, it's nice to see you again. And Aviva, you too. What a nice group of women. I might just make a habit of this. I am Aliza Freedman. My business is Your Site Sizzles. And I, just like Tina said, I'm a branding and marketing expert. I do everything from creating, for a startup, creating a logo, a tagline, a brand identity, a website. I design the site, I write the site, and then I even do marketing coaching for clients who want some of that support once we're all done. So I kind of do everything soup to nuts, from branding right through marketing. And I love it. I work with small business owners, usually solopreneurs, and I'm going to keep this a secret. You got to promise not to tell anybody. I love working with women, like so much, empowering women. I know we're all preaching from the same book, right? It's all about supporting each other because when one of us wins, we all win. So that's me. That's in a nutshell what I do. I also have another business. I'll tell you just a little bit about it at the very end. It's a branding community, which is different but related. So, Tina, did you want to start with a question?
Hold on. Okay. All right. I wanted to unmute myself. Okay. So, Aliza, when we talk about branding, what does brand even mean? We've heard the word, but I want you to elaborate more because this is something that I didn't even know what brand meant. I thought brand was a nice logo, your website, but I want you to elaborate more. What does that word brand mean?
So you were on the right track. You were starting down the path. Your logo is part of your brand. Your tagline is part of your brand. Your messaging, your website, your imagery, your color schemes, they're all part of your brand. But what a well-built brand really does is bring together and synthesize all those elements so that they're lined up in a way that communicates with specific people. And those specific people, Tina alluded to before she introduced me, those specific people are your ideal clients. So a brand is what connects you with your ideal client in a way where you are different, where what you have to offer, what your solutions to their pain points are, is what makes you different. And the brand is the end result of using a brand strategy to define your business in words, in style, in color, and in imagery. So the entire brand strategy really develops from very, very carefully determining who your ideal client is. And there are a lot of different names for your ideal client. You might have heard your target market, your target audience, your avatar. That was a big one back when the movie was made and everybody was blue. So your client avatar is really a fancy word for saying the person you want to connect with because they're right for you and you're right with them. So when you start with a clear brand and you know who you're talking to, then you know exactly what they want to hear, what matters to them, how you should say it, and what your brand needs to look and feel like in their minds. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes. But I thought it would be helpful to talk for a second about some examples of strong brands. And we all know, I'm sure if I asked for, everybody to raise their hand and name a strong brand, you could name several. I'm just going to throw out a few. Apple, Disney, Tesla, Harley Davidson, right? Who doesn't have an image of the ideal client of a Harley Davidson? Tiffany Jewelry. And then here's a cool one, the difference between the brand of Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. They both sell coffee. They both sell sandwiches and all kinds of foods now. You walk in, you pay a lot of money, you leave, and you get what you ordered, but their brands are very, very different. So a brand is really about painting a picture and connecting with your ideal client in a way that makes you stand out. That's what branding really does. It makes you stand out, very simply.
Okay.
It's the process of researching, developing, and applying a distinctive feature or set of features to your business so that those people, those consumers, those ideal clients begin to associate themselves with your products and services. And I've studied many, many branding gurus in my day, and one of my favorites, one of the biggies, he's like the godfather of branding. His name is Marty Neumeier. He's written many, many books. If you're curious and you want to hit me up, I'll put my email in the chat. I can give you a list and make some suggestions. But Marty Neumeier says, a brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization. So it's much less about you as the business owner than it is about your ideal client and what they feel about your business.
Okay. Good. That is very good. So why is it important though? Why is brand important?
Well, I mean, gee, that's like a bazillion-dollar question, right? It reminds me of real estate agents where they say location, 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 like that's everything. Well, in the branding world, it's differentiate. This is hard to say. Differentiation, differentiation, differentiation. Because differentiation is what puts you on the map. It's what gets you in the game. If you look and talk and sound and feel just like everybody else, how are you going to stand out? And, when we're business owners, we have to determine what do we want to be known for? Where are we going to focus? What is our specialty? Who are we looking to attract? Because that's what branding does. It attracts your people to you over time with messaging, with imagery that's consistent. And so the real point of why it's so important to have a brand is because otherwise you're just a name. You're just a pretty face. And you don't have anything to compete with on that playing field. So really the questions that you need to ask yourself in terms of why is it important? Things like, what do you want to be known for? What do you do better than anybody else? That's the basis of your brand. So you want to be so clear about what makes you different that when your ideal client has some pain, some frustration, some problem that they're looking to solve, you become the obvious solution. So for instance, I'm going to do a little game with Tina here. She doesn't know I'm going to do this, but here we go. This is the what makes you different game. So there's an exercise in Marty Neumeier's book where he's talking about being the only, and that when you understand what your onlyness is, meaning what makes you the only one in your industry, that XYZ, then you've arrived. Then you've got your point of differentiation for your brand. So it would follow along with me. Hopefully this will make sense in a second. So Tina, what makes you and From Job to Joy different? What are you the only one that does?
Okay, so that's a great question. So it's my story of how I transitioned from the 9 to 5. So I'm the one that can share with you what are the challenges, the barriers that people have in a 9 to 5, and how do they plan to exit that 9 to 5 into starting a business, because I can relate to it. And that's one of the things for me that I think is important, is that relatability. It's my story, sharing it to my audience. Okay. And it's part of niching down. All right. It is part of having your niche. But, I think what makes me unique is me, is my person. It's who I am and how I relate to that. Okay.
Awesome. So that's
Okay.
a really good start. And I know, Tina, you're pretty much in touch with that because you and I know each other well. We've worked together a lot, and those are the kinds of questions I ask. So what I would urge all of the rest of you to do is to give that some thought, not now, but in the quiet, when you have your coffee, your tea, your wine, your green drink, whatever it is, really give some thought. And make notes. What is it that you do better than anybody else that makes you so different, so that when you meet somebody for the first time, they say, "So tell me about yourself." Well, you want to lead with that thing. You are the only that.
Right.
So that's where I would really want you to focus. That's really the key to branding. If I'm going to lay it out in one key principle, it's that. So the question here that you can write down and work on later is, um, I am the only blank that blank. That's the formula that I'd like you to work on in the future. I'm the only blank that blank.
Right. That's
So
great.
if you aren't clear on exactly what that is, that's okay. No, most people aren't. It's just a really great jumping off point.
Awesome. Okay. And Suze, did you have a question? Because we're going to leave questions after we're done with
No, not a
Elise.
question, just a comment, just in terms of, you know, taking your brand, the way you talked about personalizing it. Um, you know, being in that position to own it, to make it your own and to live it. Because, people say you might be selling a product, but you are basically your brand. You are your brand.
Yep.
And I know, like, I've built up a little bit of my own, like people know me now, like my glasses. Everybody knows me for my glasses. That's part of my brand. People say, "Oh, I love your glasses." That's how people, so there's an element of that connection with that. But more importantly, is I am my brand. That
Yep.
is my point.
That's
Okay.
right.
Awesome.
It is about living the brand, because the way you live is what amplifies your brand, what brings it to life. Absolutely.
And then attracts the right people.
Exactly.
To establish the know, like, and trust factor. Yes, the know, like, and trust factor. Okay, awesome. So what are 3 tips that you have for somebody who's starting a business? And because, women here, some of us, like I said, are in a 9 to 5. Some of them are just starting a business. What are 3 tips that you have for someone starting a business today?
So really great question. And I'm thrilled that you ask it, because I have a pet. It's more than a pet peeve. It's my passion project. It's much more than a pet peeve. My passion project is to stop people, particularly women business owners, from going out like guns ablazing, doing your social media marketing, doing your talking points, doing your sound bites or your elevator pitches, going off half-cocked before you have a clear brand built. Because I say this so much of the time. Are you all familiar with the Hippocratic Oath, the oath that the doctors take, or at least that they used to take way back when? The Hippocratic Oath says, do no harm. And I think about that all the time, because if you're going out there and you're marketing and you're posting all the time on social, you're doing all the things, right? All the things that you think you need to do to succeed, to gain traction, to get more clients and customers, but you don't have a clear brand. It hasn't been properly built and executed, and it's not speaking to the people that you need to speak to in the way that they need to be spoken to. And when I say speak, I mean in word and in visuals. If you're going off marketing before you've got that, you're breaking, if you were a doctor, you'd be breaking the Hippocratic Oath, because you're harming yourself. You are, not only are you wasting energy, but you may actually be alienating people. So tip number 1 is do no harm. Make sure that before you tackle social media and do presentations and all the rest, that you're clear on who your ideal client is and the different elements needed to have a strong, cohesive brand. That's tip number 1. So spend the time and do the research. Everything starts really with understanding who your ideal client is. And that takes time and effort, just like anything that's worthwhile. So research, go online. And when you're in a particular business, if you're in the health and wellness field, for instance, several people in this room are, research who your ideal customer is and what matters to them. Research what they care about. That's the psychographics of your ideal client. Is what's their lifestyle? What matters to them? How do they think about things? Are they conservative? Are they liberal thinkers? Are they casual? Are they more buttoned up? Are they formal? Where do they spend time? Not just the demographics of your ideal client, but really understanding, getting into the hearts and heads of your ideal clients and customers is it's critical, because otherwise, like I said, you're not only just wasting time, you could be alienating the people you want to reach. Think also about, in terms of ideal client, who have you really loved working with? This is a fun question for people to think about. I talk about this a lot with my own clients. Think back, if you're a new business, then I'm going to ask the question a little bit differently because you don't have clients yet or customers. But if you're an existing business, think back as to who you felt you could really help. Who, when you were done working with them, they left you much better than they found you. Meaning you've really made an impact on them. You've helped them personally. You've helped them professionally. You've really forged a connection that matters. You've really made a very big impact on their lives and on their business. Those kinds of people are the people who are your ideal client. And by the way, they're also great referral partners for you, great referral sources, because people tend to associate with people like themselves. So when you actually figure out and you take that time and you work the process of determining who your ideal client is and what they kind of look like and act like and feel like, you have done most of the hard work. So I think that might actually count as two tips in one, because I can't say enough about understanding who your ideal client is and then creating the brand that really fits them, that suits them, that matters to them, that they can't live without. And then in terms of that and what matters to them, think about what keeps them up at night. What are their pain points? What frustrates them? What brings them joy? What are their hobbies? Where do they spend their time online? Go ahead and really research in Facebook groups and online chat forums and get into the hearts and heads of those people, because the time and effort that you spend doing that and really understanding who they are and why they do what they do, you will be speaking right to them in your branding. So I think that probably counts as tips number 2 and 3 right there.
Great tips. And I love the fact about doing the research. One of the things that I'm doing, and I've been in business for, it'll be 6 years this coming July full time. And, my own coach has said to me, who are your top 3 competitors who does what you're doing? And I
Yeah.
said, I don't know. And I'm actually speaking to someone tomorrow that does do what I do. So I'm going to be meeting with her because we want to know who is our competition. All right. And I think that that's a great tip.
Yep.
If I had to do this again and again, it's knowing who your competition is.
And knowing
And
what makes you different from them. Not
exactly.
necessarily that they're awful and you're great, although that may be the case sometimes, but each of you is different. You can meet, 12 business coaches and get 12 very different stories. So there's a shoe
Yes.
for every foot. You just have to decide which foot you're going to fit.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, this is great. So our last question that I'm going to ask you, and then we're going to leave it open for the audience to ask you questions. But what are some mistakes that women make related to creating a brand for their business? And I think
So
you shared some of the things, but
yeah, I did. And I'm going to go into more detail. But before I do, I have to say, I love this question particularly because your question isn't what are common mistakes that people make? Your question was very specific. And I don't know whether it was intentional or not,
it
but
was
it was
intentional.
okay. Awesome. So I'm picking up what you're putting down, Tina.
Okay.
So the question is, what are the common mistakes that women make in building their brand? And my thinking is this. First of all, we're women. So apologies to the men who might be listening. But I think we're a different breed in that we tend to really apologize for ourselves. See, I just apologized. You see that? We apologize for ourselves a whole lot. We are
Yes.
always sorry. We are always shrinking and worrying and afraid to offend and not wanting to see, stuck up or self-centered or bitchy or all those things, right? I mean, we may be those things, but we're not those things by virtue of the fact that we build a brand and we are proud of who we are and why we do what we do and who we serve. So most common mistake as women is we need to stop apologizing. We just need to stop apologizing. We need to own our power. We're fierce, we're brave, and we are making it happen. Mistake number 1. Now, mistake number 2, it's a close second, but mistake number 2, I would say, is not understanding who your ideal client is. You've heard me say it now. I'm going to be like a broken record. Cobbling together different words and images that appeal to you and have nothing to do with your ideal client. There's one thing for sure. Branding is not about us. It's not about me. My brand is not about me. My brand is about you. So that's a really, really important concept to keep in mind, a principle of branding, is that it has nothing to do with you, except that it's yours. It's really how it affects other people. They say the brand is built in the mind of the consumer, not in our own minds. So make sure that you're building a cohesive brand that appeals to them, to your ideal client. Another great quote, Marty Neumeyer, who I quoted a couple of minutes ago, says, a brand is not what you say it is, it's what they say it is. Really, really brings the point home. He's very succinct. In fact, it's not really about you. We have to leave our own feelings and our ego at the door. So you got to make sure that your brand is specifically geared to connect with your ideal client. Your brand is not your logo. It's not a catchy tagline. It's not the pretty colors that you like. Your brand is like an orchestra with many, many different elements working together in harmony, which we call in the trade, we call brand cohesion. And so when you have all those elements working together, that's what connects you to your ideal client's pain points. So your brand is a solution to their pain. And if you don't know your ideal client so well that you don't know their pain, how can you possibly be the solution? And that is that, ladies. That is that.
Awesome. I love what you said about that. It's not about us, it's about them, and it's what's in it for them. They want to know. Like and this is very interesting because I would always think, well, I want to put this out there because I think it's good, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what they want, that my audience wants.
It's probably the top mistake, aside from, trying to be all things to all people. The top mistake is really in terms of, well, I like this. I think it's pretty. Isn't this a nice logo? I love my logo. It's not about you. If you were selling to yourself, you could have that luxury, but you're not. You're appealing to other people. So you have to get out of your own head. And it takes work. It takes a lot of work and discipline, but it can happen.
It does. It does. Okay, this is great. So I want to open up to questions. Anybody have a question to ask Aliza that she might not have shared, or that you thought of something? Feel free to ask away.
I've stunned them all.
Yeah, you just stumped them. No question?
I've got one.
Okay, go, Kathy.
How did you come up with the name of your site and pick the bacon and eggs?
So excellent question. And I know Tina asked it before, so I'm glad you remembered to bring it back around. So a million years ago, when I decided I wanted to start my own business and strike out on my own, there was a commercial on the radio. I don't know, some of you may actually remember this. There was a guy, the website, the radio commercial was oh, now I'm forgetting, it being 7:30 at night. It had something to do with it was like, your brand sucks. It was something like that. And I love that idea. So, and I can't remember, I apologize. It would have been much funnier if I could remember, but it had to do with something sucking. Your business name sucks, something sucks. And I kind of held on to that name for a long time. And when I decided that I wanted to start my own business, I liked the idea of something really kind of being in your face. It catches your attention. So I started to think about the buying experience, and what does it mean to somebody when they decide they're going to buy, when for whatever reason it's their time to buy. And I started my business about 7 years ago, and back then bacon was like in its heyday. Do you remember they still have some bacon festivals, and like bacon was a religion. It was like the craziest thing. It was if you were Jewish, which I happen to be, it was not part of the religion, but everybody else was like a bacon fiend. And I know there are Jewish people who are in closets eating bacon to this day. And I'm okay with that. I'm not judging. But the reason bacon, I think, was such a tremendous draw for people is because it was a total experience. So that, like, when you cook bacon, you've got the feast for the eyes, the nose, the mouth. It's just a whole engulfing experience. So when I created my business, I wanted it to be something where I'm helping small business owners to create an entire experience for their customers and clients. And bacon just seemed like the choice, And I'm kind of fun. I try to be.
Interesting.
So
all the
put it all
senses.
together. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Well, bacon goes with everything, so it makes sense.
That's a good question. Anybody else? Any other questions for Aliza? Okay. Oh, who has a question?
I do, Tiffany.
Oh, Tiffany.
Hi. So you and Aliza, and I think it was you who may have brought it up, Tina, when you talked about competition, and it's okay. You want to know who your competition is, and Aliza has said yes, and what makes you different. And I found that some women, yes, they identify their competition, but they're not able to have that mindset where I'm looking at it to see I'm different, but instead they look at it as I'm not good enough and they give up. So what advice or tip would you give to women to help them stay in that frame of mind as, yes, identify your competition to see how you're different that can help you versus identifying their competition, I'm not good enough, I'm not going to move forward with my brand?
I love that
Girl,
question.
That is a great question. Tina,
I
you want to
know.
start? Go ahead.
Well, it has to do with your mindset, Tiffany, and you being a mindset coach. When I look at the competition, I look at it as a learning, like how they do things differently. And then I look at myself, what is the value that I provide for someone, my client? So I just put it reframing. I do a reframe, and I don't look at it as they're better than me, although I look at it as not competition, but cooperation or co-petition or whatever you want to call collaboration. Maybe there's opportunities for collaboration, with somebody that does similar things to you, but maybe there's a different spin that they offer. And you could maybe collaborate, because I believe collaborations are huge. I was talking to Aliza about that before everybody came on. If you want to help with revenue and relationships, think of collaborations that you can work with. Who can you connect with and do a joint venture? And I think that's really powerful. But yeah, I don't, I think at the beginning when somebody starts a business, they look at somebody else and say, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be as good as them. But you have to look at how long have they been in business? How many hours have they put in? You've heard the book, The Outlier. You have to put in what, 10 hours of 10,000 hours of time. I mean, you have to put in the time. So maybe you haven't put in the time. Like I've been in business full-time for 6 years. I was working full-time in my job before that. Somebody who's been in business maybe longer than me, they've been doing it longer. They've been learning. They've been working with other coaches longer than me. So I give myself grace. And you know what? I may not be where I want to be. However, I've made progress. So I look at the progress of where I am today and to where I was yesterday. And when I look back the years before, okay, and that's the way I look at it. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Tiffany.
That was a great answer, and it was such an interesting and really important question. It speaks to, the challenge that women have in owning who they are and owning our power and our purpose. And it's a big part of the reason why I started my business way back when. I used to be, and I don't want to take up too much time, but I used to be the computer fairer. I helped women on their home computers to understand how to do basic skills. And I found that women were so in need of support, not just knowledge, but support. And so what I did was I started a business to help those women. And then eventually that business, it was time for that business to go. And I morphed that business into what I do now, which is helping small business owners, many of whom are women, to get in touch with their purpose, their passion, and then to clarify their brand. And I help them do that and the marketing. But a big part of what I do, the reason that I love what I do so much is for just that reason, the coaching and the supporting and the empowering. Because that's always been with me. That's a part of me. That's in my DNA. And we need to do that for each other, whether it's as a business or as a human. We just need that. I believe that's part of our responsibility as people.
Yes, good. All right, great question.
I really love,
Go, Sylvia.
No, I just wanted to say that I really loved Tiffany's question. And I saw that at the very beginning of my career as a coach, where I did this. I did compare, I looked at others, how they do it. But, because of being a mindset coach and strategy coach, I look at it more as a creating something different. So I look at what they have and I listen not as a competitor, but as someone who is here to create something that they have and deliver it in a different way. Yeah. Because nobody connects. I mean, if you take Tony Robbins, Mary Morrissey, whoever, they don't connect with everybody. there are people who just don't get the message. So I try to look at it from that perspective. How can I bring something that they are trying to say and deliver it to a different, to people who can't just grasp that? And that's why I find this to be creating together rather than competing with each other to help me with that. I love
Yeah.
your question, Tiffany, and that was really great.
It was a great question. I love it. That's why I love it. I just love the
And
questions.
That
Anybody
speaks to
else?
an abundance mindset as opposed to a scarcity mindset, right? There's enough for all of us. Plenty.
There is enough for all of us. And that's the thing when I, even when I'm working with my clients, is helping them to come from that abundance mindset. There's enough around. Yes, there's other coaches that do what you do, but how are you different? There are other communities like this that are offered, that are membership. How can the inner circle be different? Those are things that, through feedback that I have received from my members, that I've made changes. So always ask for feedback. Don't be so ego driven, like I've got this, I'm great. No, be open minded and receive the feedback from people instead of shutting it down. Okay, yes, Suze.
And what you said before, Tina, is very important. 10 years ago, people focused on the differences between you and someone else's business. Now, the focus is what you said, collaboration. How can we support each other? There's so many minds. Listen, there are coaches out there, okay? Let's face it, a lot of coaches. But you know what? I embrace them because everybody has a story and everybody has something that they can share. And let's be one. Let's be all. That's the way to go. And that's where you will grow your business, is if you take the collaborative approach. Period.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. It's a very good point. So anybody else have any other questions? And then I'm just going to go through real quickly some few points. Then we're going to take a group photo.
Just wanted to, Tina, I'm sorry, just real quick. I
Go ahead.
popped in the chat here. I popped a freebie that I wanted to share with everybody. It's just top secret tips to build trust with your ideal client. So you can feel free to download that.
Awesome. And make sure you save the chat tonight. All right. So you have this available to you. If you don't know how to save the chat, 3 dots on the bottom in the chat area, just click on that and save it, and you will get it when you log off. But thank you so much for offering that gift to us tonight. All right. Any other questions? All right. So just a couple things. One of the things that I look at is when I go to a website, social media, I want to have that experience. How do I feel when I'm going there? So when I rebranded my website from Job to Joy, I want people to know where I bring them from and to where I bring them. Thank you, Aliza, for helping me and coming up with the name. I give it to Aliza because my old name was Life is Ideal. It didn't speak to what I did. So you want to make sure that your website speaks to that, the colors, that when people see you on website, they see you on lives, when they speak with you on the phone, how are you speaking to them? What are some words you're saying? Like, I'm all about freedom. My book is Freedom: 7 Steps to Thrive. My website, more to come. I want to share photos of me living the life of freedom. So you want to make sure that you capture your brand visually, like Aliza said. The colors, like the colors that I have, speaks to my brand. All right. So you want to look at the images you have. You want to look at the colors. Look at the graphics. Your graphics is your brand. Like my colors that I have is part of my brand. I'm not going to be changing colors depending on how I feel that day. Doesn't work that way. I used to do that. So I want all of you to like using the consistent colors, the fonts, the same thing across the board. You want to be mindful of that because again, your brand is you, but the colors, the website, everything you do is your brand. Okay, so those are a couple of things. Like I said, there's a worksheet in the group page, but these are some things that I want you to think about. And then I'll stop the recording and then we can have some additional conversations, okay?